Welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast, where business leaders come to share their advice and journeys to success with existing and emerging leaders of America. Now, here's your host, Dylan Bloyd.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast. Today, I'm joined by Peter Snell, entrepreneur, growth strategist, and the founder and CEO of PetroVybe, an energy development company providing accredited investors access to oil and natural gas investment opportunities. Over the course of nearly 3 decades, Peter has built and led companies across healthcare, consulting, technology, and energy. And he's founded multiple businesses, led high-growth organizations, and personally closed more than $339 million in revenue throughout his career. Today, Peter is helping investors better understand the growing relationship between artificial intelligence, energy infrastructure, and long-term investment opportunities as demand for energy continues to accelerate. In this conversation, we'll discuss Peter's entrepreneurial journey, the principles behind building and scaling successful businesses, the evolving role of energy in a rapidly changing economy, and his vision for the future of PetroVybe. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dylan. Appreciate it, man. Good to be here. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. I'm excited for this, So, Peter, for those who, may not know your story, you spent nearly 3 decades building companies across healthcare, consulting, technology, and now energy. So, what experiences shaped your journey into entrepreneurship, and what ultimately led you to founding PetroVybe?
Yeah, I mean, it's I did a lot of floundering early, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up, and I think I finally figured it out when PetroVybe has been peak for me. So, in the sense that I finally really settled into something that I wanted to do, and so I love it. I love the work, and I've always appreciated hard work, but it was tough to do it long term if you really didn't like it. And so I've always enjoyed like building things, being creative in the sense that I could fancy myself an amateur carpenter, but that has a certain path to it, but it's not really one for me, at least to make a living. But I always like creating things. So building businesses, ideating into like, we could do this if we could put these people together and build this product and put this service to it. And so that's how my mind has always been, has always worked. Yeah. And it's really been a matter of trying to learn certain technical aspects that you need in order to know, hey, the real thing you need to focus on is there a problem that people need to solve? And then do you have the skill set or the grit to actually solve that problem and make a profit doing it?
Right.
So, didn't know that early on. I was more, moving too fast to really think of things that way. But that is really, in any business, that's where you start. So start with a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's how your mind works. You like to piece the puzzles together, right? And make it so everything fits. And, even in the stuff that you're doing as a hobby, right? So it's pretty amazing what you've done. And I'm excited to dive deep into it. So, throughout your career, you've consistently been brought into organizations to drive growth, leading one company to, I believe it was four times year-over-year revenue growth while increasing EBITDA 5-fold. I mean, incredible, man. Yep. So, and building your own consulting firm through the years of experience, exponential growth as well. So looking back, what do you believe are the common principles behind building businesses that scale successfully?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done a lot of things not well. So just putting that on the table, I mean, I've clearly, if you talk to anybody my age, or doesn't even have to be an old guy like me, I'm 53 years old, but I have learned a lot from my failure, and usually more. It's painful. It sticks better. But that doesn't mean you don't learn from your success, and it doesn't mean you don't want to have success. But I think the focus for really accomplishing growth, the things that I would say really feed the success that we're having, or at least the work we're doing, it's because it's not always successful, is it really starts with people. You cannot we're so hopped up on AI. Me too. I mean, it's a great tool. I use it every day. I've been on it all morning, helping me like be faster and get things done in a more effective way as well. But we're so enamored with tech and everything that's going on. It's easy to forget about the fact that we're still people, and you need good people, and you need to have good relationships with good people that are in the right place. So, the good to great, I think it's Jim Collins that wrote that. It's been a minute, but right people on the right seat on the bus is a way he describes it. And so I think people is massive. A couple of the things I would say that are really important, at least in our environment at PetroVybe, and this is more of the mature view. It's not the beginning of the journey. I didn't know this stuff back in the day, but and that's one thing I would say is be coachable, especially when you're young. You think you got ideas. Ideas are awesome. Like, you should have a place to flourish in those. But doing a lot of active listening when you're young is really important. Like, ask good questions and listen to the answer. Don't look for the next thing to say or have a question. Listen to the answer. But back to the more mature side of things that have really worked is having the right people in the right places. Progress over perfection is big. That's something that I learned over time. I was way too interested in having the perfect everything. I wouldn't have ever admitted that, but I need it just right so that we can really deliver on it. And it's progress over perfection is a really important principle. And then another one is forgiveness over permission. Now, that's a tricky one because not everybody is qualified to manage forgiveness over permission, but you want to be able to empower your people that if they're in the right seat, that they have the ability to go out and make decisions within pretty appropriate guardrails. Some people need tighter guardrails. Some people need systems that are really tight to thrive. That gives them a level of security. If you're me, I don't even want a guardrail. Like, I need guardrails, but I don't want them. So you got to find for a guy like me, you got to have it way out. You might be that way. I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You probably like the flexibility, I imagine, to even, fail forward, as a lot of people would say, and find your way and create and do those things that require more space and time. So I think those are three really important principles. But as the last thing I would say, and I would say the most important thing, is to be a biblical steward. And I'm a disciple of Jesus. Some people that's a thing, others it's not. I would encourage everybody to consider the gospel. It is the most compelling story. The evidence is overwhelmingly compelling. If you want evidence, if you just want to go and look at it on faith, it's an amazing thing. But I care about eternity. God's placed it in our hearts, and I am very clear that there was a death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, and that he's here to save us. So I needed saving. I was blessed to be able to have the opportunity to hear the gospel and accept that and claim Christ as my Savior and Lord. And I bring that up because it's really important to how I run the business at PetroVybe. And I don't just talk about it on podcasts. Like, it is the very foundation, and not just in the deck.
Right.
It is integrated throughout our culture, actually. And I say that because being a biblical steward gets your mind frame right around really everything. It helps you understand how money is to be managed, which is really stewarded. It's not yours. Even when it's yours, it's not yours.
Right.
How to steward resources, how to steward people, how to understand that the business is temporal. Even if you have a long-term business, our lives are temporal. So you have to understand, what impact can I make for the King of Kings that is eternal in his perspective. And so being a biblical steward is how And look, you don't have to be an owner of a company or a CEO or even in leadership. You can be and in my view, scripture is very clear. We all are biblical stewards if we're really thinking about how God expects us to work and live life. So.
Yeah, no, I can not agree more. I think you touched on a lot of different points here, starting or kind of going back to what you were talking about, learning from your failures. You learn just as much from your failures as you do your successes. And at the same time, people want to say, just only learning from your failures, but you want to learn from both, right? You want to make sure that you're taking pieces of it and then using that to move forward, right? And then you talked about, making sure that you do listen, right? I think the only way you can do that is you listen to your failures, listen to your, successes, and then listen to what success leaves clues. That's obviously a common or a very popular quote out there, right? And so when you're listening to what people have to say, and what they're doing, and they've made it before, why don't you pick up on those things, right? So you can move forward. And then obviously the progress over perfection. I love that very much, just because of the fact that it's just like, that's what before people even want to put their business out, or even starting a podcast, for example, it's like you want it to be perfect. Nothing's going to be perfect, and you realize how much people can relate to you when something is not perfect, right? And so it's like
authentic.
100%, absolutely. And then speaking about your beliefs and everything, there's only a few people have actually touched on that a little bit in these podcasts in the last 170, 180 episodes, right? And I love that. And I'm a firm believer as well. I'm a Jesus believer and follower, of course, and I don't share that very often. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of principles that you can utilize and help you get to where you need to get to based on those principles, right? So thank you so much for sharing on that and touching on that.
Sure, you bet. Yeah, it's really, I mean, I've done it the wrong way a lot of years, and I'm still learning how to do it the right way, but directionally it's definitely going the right way. But I would just say it is the only thing that lasts. Like, it's not, Jesus isn't a guru. He's not giving suggestions. He's giving commands.
Yeah.
And why people are, that makes people bristle. It used to make me bristle, even when I was like, I was definitely good with the I need saving, and I'm on board with that. It was the lordship thing that I was like, I struggle with that. And then, so God did a lot to sanctify me, which is a refinement process. Right. And the one thing I would tell you is he's very clear in scripture, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. And I thought, so I wrestled with that for a few years, not even that long ago. This is, but anyway, I say that because he loves us so much that he gives us clear instructions for what to do and what not to do, and then what we get out of it. Now, we don't get to define what we get out of that per se. We can be engaged and get certain things that we want, but the whole point is if what we want, what we ask for, what we call for is in his will, then we got nothing to worry about. But if it's not in his will, and that's the part are you negotiating with God, or are you really doing the right thing because it's the right thing? Maybe you get results out of it that you want, or maybe you don't. But the whole point is if you're first honoring him, you can't go wrong. He doesn't want us to not get results all the time, but sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he wants the failure so he can work to prune us. And I think that's a really important distinction, because that's what matters most. We are not here for pleasure and comfort and all the things. Those are not our primary responsibilities. Our primary responsibility is to honor and glorify a holy and righteous God, and to go and make other disciples as part of that process. And that is what your work is actually for. Now, do you get wins out of that and things that you can? Does God want us to have some comfort in life? Sure. I mean, he's not, he's not like a magnifying glass on a bunch of ants down here. That's not who he is. But that doesn't always look like what we want it to look like. And the key part is if the more we do his commands, the more we'll be at peace with it. Doesn't mean we won't have calamity. I mean, indeed, all who desire to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. So the more you pursue righteousness, the more people will stand up and go, I don't like that. But that doesn't mean you're going to be troubled by it. If you're seeking the Lord, give him your petition with thanksgiving, and he will give you a peace that passes all understanding. So
absolutely. It's like you said, it's clear and defined, but at the same time, everybody interprets it a little bit differently because we all live different lives, right? And so I'm a firm believer of what you put out there, it's going to come back to you tenfold. If you're not sitting there looking for the wrong things and putting the wrong things out there, if you're looking out for other people and helping them live better lives, you're going to live a better life.
Proverbs 10 and 11, go read it. For whoever's listening to this, go read it. And that is and we're not putting meaning on Scripture. We're extracting meaning from Scripture. And Scripture is very clear that when you pursue righteousness, that is going to come back to you. That's very much a commentary. So go read what it actually says. But
yes.
I like what you're saying. So
right. Yeah, I like what you're saying, Peter. This is great. So I do want to switch gears a little bit, because you often say that there's no AI boom without natural gas, right? So which is a perspective many people don't probably haven't even considered. So can you explain the connection between artificial intelligence, data centers, and America's growing demand for energy, and why you believe natural gas will play such a critical role in the years ahead?
Yeah, so it already is, just as a note of current events. But electricity, everybody wants to plug everything in, which is fine. Electricity does not come out of thin air. It needs a fuel source in order to exist. It does not. You can't gin up electric power, without some sort of fuel, and so that fuel is going to be a number of things. The number one source is natural gas.
Yeah.
Nuclear is a fuel source. Hydro, wind. I don't like wind. Wind has very specific applications, but I do like solar. Solar is a fuel source. So you have multiple types of fuel that's required in order for these utilities to make electricity, so that we can all plug in everything that we want. So that's why it's so critical. And that's where data centers have two constraints. They have compute power constraints, which, I'm not an expert in that, but you can, chips get hot. They require a massive amount of water to stay cool. They have speed limitations that, if you ask anybody who's an expert on hardware or AI right now and its software component, they would all love to have quant chips. They run, theoretically they run cooler, and they can do quantitatively so much more computing in nanoseconds. So, but anyway, I say all that to say that all of that is dependent on a power source, and you have to plug in data centers. And so you need the cheapest, easiest fuel source and the most appropriate for our grid infrastructure, and that is natural gas. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I think that it is a big, there's a not misconception, because I think there is a lot of information circulating right now on social media about data centers and things, and the usage of water, and some people saying, one side's arguing that it's going to be circulated, so it's not going to take as much, and then there's other people who are saying that's BS. And there's a lot of information. If, of course, do your research on it, but there's a like you said, there's a fuel for it. So people don't understand that what it takes to actually get those things entirely up and running, and what it's going to take the entirety of it all. But I'm excited to kind of hear more about this, because PetroVybe. Or go ahead, touch on that, please.
No, I was just going to, to your point, some fun facts to know about what's going on. The demand. Let's talk about that. The demand for power is growing at such a pace that right now. And I think they're under positioning it. I think it's already proving to be a bigger demand growth. But the amount of added power that we're going to need, and I'm talking about constant power, like running 24/7, 365. By the year 2030, is the additional power that we need is the equivalent to adding California, Texas, Florida, and New York combined to our grid. That is where we are headed. So if you think about it, and by the way, those 4 states represent, I want to say, approximately 40% of our household power drain right now as a country. So, excuse me, the demand is massive, and that's where we're headed. We're already pacing above that actual target. And this is just the regular, our grid is massively stressed. Now there's a lot of work and investment finally going into the grids. It's not one grid, it's a bunch of, there's three major like grid areas. One is in Texas, one is in Virginia or West Virginia, Virginia, and then one in I want to say Washington. But anyway, those three like major hubs are the grid locations, and all this is to say that we're already in the summers and in the winters in peak power mode. We're actually defaulting into the overage capacity and maxing that out. And so there's a lot of investment that needs to go into that in a hurry. And that's why you're seeing a lot of data centers and tech companies buying power plants and buying into nuclear and doing things that building their own power plants. Actually, the larger players are doing that. So, and there's so much need for it, for the power. They're literally becoming like power companies. It's pretty amazing. So, and that's, that's the other thing that's all the obvious stuff, which is massive. But underneath that, people usually associate petroleum products to, the fuel at the gas station, right?
Exactly. Yes.
That whole side of things, it's all, that's like not even half of the need for petroleum. There are 6,000 everyday products that require petroleum products to exist. And 6,000, I mean, let that sink in, 6,000 everyday products. So even our, beloved electric vehicles, the Teslas and so forth, the eco footprint is proven now that you have in some studies, it's worse than a internal combustion engine vehicle. You have heavier cars, you have different rubber requirements, all the petroleum that goes into that car, the batteries, the road wear that it creates because of the weight. You're not talking about one vehicle, you're talking about trucks and vehicles, and it's such a big portion of the fleet now. There's a lot that goes into making this world turn, and it is all built on petroleum at every level in all the depths. This conversation that we're having, on the screens, all of this, your shirt, if you're wearing gel in your hair, right, it's all petroleum, man.
Can you tell it through the screen? No, yeah.
I don't know. It looks good though. It looks good.
Yeah,
so.
I appreciate you. Appreciate you. Yeah, man. No. So what you're saying, Peter, is the petroleum usage is not going away anytime soon, right? So
no, and you can have different views on that. I mean, we do. Do I think we can do better? Yeah. I mean, I don't, even me producing it as a natural gas producer, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't be looking for alternatives and ways to continue to pursue more organic utilization of supplies. I'm absolutely all for that. I do that even in my own home. I'm also not going to be naive to the fact that there are things I like, conveniences that I like. I'm going to be honest about what is actually in the marketplace, things that I want, and what its real footprint is.
Right.
And that's the thing that we need to all try to have some objectivity about. So there's a middle ground, and I think we can move forward and do more organic things as we march forward and find ways to become less dependent and more diversified in our supply chain. But the world runs on petrol, and it's not just at the gas station. So
yeah, exactly. It's exactly to that point. We want to be don't completely dependent on it, right? It's the fact that we want to, if we can lessen usage, awesome, but not go the other route where we're just continuing to, use and use and use, right? And to a point where we're going to be in some trouble. So I also want, I really want to start diving into PetroVybe because, it was built around the idea of giving accredited investors access to oil and natural gas development opportunities while focusing on long-term wealth creation, passive income, and tax efficiency. So what was the vision behind the company, and what gap did you see in the market that you believe needed to be filled?
So I love that question because I'm a business fixer by trade for the last several years. I've always been a problem solver, but so in one form or another, that's always what I was looking to do, even when I didn't know what I was doing. And some days I still don't know what I'm doing. So just to put that out there, grateful for a great big God. So, but I would say that, PetroVybe was really designed to solve a market problem. So I was doing management consultant, which means business fixer for healthcare and IT. Really tech companies in healthcare is where I settled in, and then I had an opportunity to go do that in the oil business, and really fell in love with the business. I love the tangibility of it, and to the extent to where I had, more or less. The project I was on was I was there much longer than anticipated, and we had a lot of great success and a lot of failures too. But what I found is that there was an opportunity when I learned the business. I saw the opportunity in the market, and there were several massive gaps that all really tied back to just the lack of business fundamentals in the space. So there was and that's really the simplest way to put it. And I'm talking about in the direct oil and gas investment space, but specifically building an oil and gas development company. People weren't really doing that per se. What they were doing, there were people out there building, and still are building, an oil and gas development company, and they were using the investment opportunity for accredited investors to make that possible, and those people could participate in the opportunity. But I didn't like the way that was structured. I didn't like the way that, and I still don't like it. To be honest, it's funny because what I do at PetroVybe, or the model we created, is not proprietary. You could come in and look at our model or look at the marketing even and say, I understand, a smart business guy can understand that and say, okay, I want to go produce that. Or somebody who's in Shell or BP or Exxon, that we're doing fundamentals from those companies that grew from nothing to something. And so,
Yes.
And that came through a growth strategy. But the point being is there was a lot missing from that, those business fundamentals. And that is what drew me to start PetroVybe. And knowing that we could grow a development company, we could do it in based on biblical stewardship that would honor the King of Kings and do it the right way. It's a hard business. Like, we've had a lot of stuff not go our way, but we've had a lot of stuff go our way. But what I could tell you is the fundamentals that we applied to the business, coming out of the gate, the way we structured things, those things have been massively useful. They've had great utility in allowing us the opportunity to actually weather storms primarily and still grow the business despite that. And so, to make that more practical, let's take one simple example. It's the capital stack. For some reason in oil and gas, it's direct investment is sold by some oil and gas guys. Some are bigger than others, where you contribute equity and they go drill a well or 10 wells or 100 wells. The problem isn't the number of wells. Yes, that mitigates some of the risk, but it doesn't create the opportunity that you really need or that you should get, especially when you think about the type of business. So let me address that.
Yeah.
If I have equity only and I have a software company, I grow that, I have a great scalable product. So I can scale up with equity only pretty fast. But the minute I stop reinvesting at least some of the profits, it's going to take a long time, but my business is going to shrink, even in software, even with a scalable, infinitely scalable product. If I'm not attempting to grow with reinvested profits, even something that scalable is going to suffer over time.
Yeah.
Well, here you have oil and gas, which the moment I stick a hole in the ground, I'm in a decline curve, meaning it is a declining asset from the day one. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to be a profitable asset, but generally speaking, it takes a really long time. And most of the time, especially these days, there's not enough capital into the equity side to outrun the cost. Most oil and gas deals look really good because the front end is attractive. I've got some wells that I'm drilling. The geology is good. I get them to produce, great tax deduction. So I get a value of, say, 25 to 30% in savings from my tax deduction, which is great. So now I only have, let's say I have a $100,000 investment. I only have 70,000 at risk. My first year of income is like 25%. So now I'm at like 55%, value. That keeps happening. Next year, it's say maybe 18%. Then the next year it's 12%. And that's what happens. If I'm equity only, there's no money coming to the rescue to try to get that number back up. I'm just waiting, hoping that decline slows down so that I can keep a more steady income long enough that I can actually get a multiple on my return profile. The problem is all that happens up front. People think 2, 3 years, 4 years, they're feeling like, yeah, I still got a chance. And in the end, most of the time, more than 90% of the time, what happens is by year 5 and 6 and 7, you're barely, if at all, getting return of capital, including the tax savings. Why? Because no reinvestment was made. You're not actually building growth. You're just drilling wells and hoping that the assets have enough in them. And you don't know that because you just drilled a deep, dark hole 2, 3, 4 miles into the ground. And even though you have a pretty good guesstimate based on science, it's not exact. So you don't really know until year 5, year 6. You'll really know in the first 6, 8 months. But that's the problem that I saw in the space. What you need is like any other business that wants to grow, especially in oil and gas. You need equity that creates new opportunity in your valuation that gets you access to strategic debt. So you get in our business, it's a reserve-based loan. So as you build up your reserve base, you get more capital that's cheaper. I don't have to pay it much, just a small interest rate. I have to pay it back, so that's big. But now I have 2 capital dollars working for my single equity dollar. Then I get profits out of that. Well, I want those profits also thrown back in there. Now I have $3, $4, $5, $6 of capital working to pay back 1 equity dollar and 1 debt dollar, but I don't have to pay back all those other 4 extra dollars. They are the profit. They are now working in what we call free cash flow. As soon as I put a dollar in the ground and it starts producing, that's instant profit. So it's going back to pay the original equity dollar. That is essentially, and you do that through acquisition, is buying cheaper deals and optimizing. All these things are growth oriented. That's how you make your annual distributions, or in our case, quarterly distributions. That's how you make that grow. Those are business fundamentals that simply do not exist in direct investment.
Yeah.
Oil and gas.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's exactly it. I think there's a lot of people who want to be invested in oil and gas, but they don't either know how to, or they don't know how to properly, right? And so everything you just explained, because many investors today are heavily focused on traditional classes like, stocks and real estate. So, is that essentially everything that you just explained, how you're helping investors help them understand to diversify their portfolios?
Yeah, I mean, so if you back out, I'm not a financial advisor, but I did say at Holiday Inn Express last night. Just kidding. That's an old commercial. Some people still get it. But anyway, the way I try to look at it, and this is how I look at my own portfolio, is if I have, say, $1 million in a portfolio, and I have stocks, bonds, all those other things, and I have a tax problem, and I need growth. Potentially, I need income. I don't like the income first play in oil and gas. Like it's completely against my soul. Yeah. It's not that I don't like income. I absolutely do. But you need to produce income when the business is in a true growth trajectory, not because I can throw off cash flow next month or next quarter. Because all that's going to do is going to start here and then it's going to do this. And everybody who's ever invested in oil and gas knows exactly what I'm talking about. If it even starts up here, a lot of those, because it's a tough, risky business, a lot of that is I start here with a tax deduction and then it just does this. It falls off a cliff because we drilled a dry hole, which is part of the business. That is a legit part of the
risk you take, right? Yeah,
it is. But backing up to my portfolio, if I have $1 million portfolio and I got a tax problem, and I want some long-term growth, then I look at an investment in oil and gas and say, this is a good fit for me. Because even though $100,000 feels like a lot of money, it's only 10% or less of our portfolio. That's where we like to look at people is like if you've got 100 or 200 or something like that, we're always trying to figure out where does that fit in the scope, because you need the risk tolerance to be able to sleep at night, knowing that it's a tough business anyway. But you solve an instant tax problem, and then you're willing to live with the risk to know, hey, this part of my portfolio gives me an opportunity. And in the PetroVybe 1 case, that's our project. In the PetroVybe 1 case, you have anywhere from a 2.2 to a 5.8 multiple over a 10-year period. But you have to be patient, and you have to be ready to not to desire to live on the income. If you want to desire to live on the income, there's a couple of other oil and gas projects out there that I actually really like that are designed properly for low yield income, things in the, high single digit, low double digit over a longer period of time. So but that doesn't give you that doesn't solve your tax problem.
Right.
So you've got to get, and that's why I think PetroVybe 1 is in this really unique spot, because no one else is doing this focus on natural gas. No one else is doing a capital stack that includes debt and reinvestment. And no one else is committed to a 10-year model within that construct supported by a biblical stewardship platform. So you just look at that project and you say, okay, that has a unique utilization to it. That doesn't mean that there aren't some other projects that may tick some of your boxes. The question is what are your investing priorities? And if those are them, this is oil and gas in general is good if you're 10% or less of your portfolio. You can live with that risk tolerance because your upside is worth the risk.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And so I think that there is a lot of people out there who really do want to be involved somehow in the oil and gas industry, right? It's just they don't know how. So please, anybody who's listening, please make sure you guys are reaching out to Peter, because I think him and his team can definitely help you guys understand it and help you guys get involved. And like you said, 10%, it's just the upside of it is what makes sense, right? And then of course, then at the same time, you always have to think of your risk anytime you're investing. And so it's, it's simple stuff, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you can sleep at night, like you said. So I wanted to switch gears again a little bit, because you spent your career identifying opportunities before they became obvious to everyone else, right? So whether it was healthcare, consulting, or now energy, how do you evaluate whether an opportunity is worth pursuing versus simply just being like a latest trend?
Yeah, that's that's a good, deep question. I think really the focus for me is these days I focus on what does the Lord want me to do. So I don't even look at the opportunity. I actually have to sort of throttle myself, but typically it comes down to, on a practical level, it's an unmet need. So you look at PetroVybe as an example. I started it because there's this gap in the market. I wasn't fixing a business anymore. I was creating a solution to a problem that there was a vacuum, a gap, right? And so, and I just, walked through all of that. There's a lot more to it than even that, but I think it's just getting an unmet need and being able to identify that unmet need. And when it's unmet, so first of all, it's a need.
Yeah.
It's a need. It's not a want. It's a need. And it's a need by an addressable market that is big enough where you can say, okay, can I actually build a business to address this unmet need? How is it unmet? Like, are pieces of it met? Are pieces of it not met? Like, when you look at what you're trying to do, because you don't want to get too broad. You want to make sure when you're looking at identifying an opportunity that that you're not trying to boil the ocean or eat the elephant in one bite, all those things. So you really need to, one of the really important things is that unmet need. The best place to start is something super, super specific. Yeah. Like very specific, very tangible. That is critical. So many people, especially idea people, they get burned because they do try to think. It's not bad to think big, but think big specifically. If you can kind of package that up. So you want to focus on things that are like very easy for somebody to understand what you're trying to accomplish, and you can expand from there. You don't have to live in the specificity long term, you can actually grow beyond that. And look at Amazon as an example. Jeff Bezos was selling books out of his garage. All he was doing was selling books. He clearly had a vision for something much bigger. Amazon, next to Alibaba, right? The largest, I still think Amazon, I don't know. I'd have to fact check me on that, but largest marketplace on the planet. They sell everything to everybody. You can go to Amazon for everything. I mean, Walmart would argue, position. But my point is, Amazon did not start as Amazon. They started as, and they're in other things. They're not just a marketplace, man. They're in space. They're in tech. They're in all these healthcare. I mean, it is nuts. So, but they were able to do that because Jeff Bezos got really good to the extent where he was losing money for years at just selling and shipping books because there was an unmet need. What was that unmet need? People had to go to the store to buy books when readers are like, hey man, I'll just ship it to me. It's easier for me to shop and determine what book I wanted. And he used that as a springboard to do more later. So I think being specific is really critical. Obviously, making sure you have an unmet need, make sure there's an addressable, big enough market to do it. The other thing is you better love what you're doing.
Yeah.
So to the extent that I don't mean love it like, oh, this is really cool. Like I love doing carpentry, but to ask me if I wanted to do that for a living, I'm going to tell you, no, I want to do it at my house where it's, I can do the kind of projects I want to do. I don't want to talk to customers and find out. Now that may be for some carpenters, like that could be their thing, but that's my point. Like I love oil and gas for a multitude of reasons. I love creating things. I love the tangibility of it. I love people and building teams. All those things I get to do in a very tangible way. I like to be able to travel. I love Texas. I love America. Absolutely love Jesus. I can do all that in the oil and gas business in a way that just allows me to have so many things that I'd love to do. And so that's why it works for me. But if I were here's an important thing. So people say, well, I don't know what I love to do. So let's have a practical solution for that, because I think that's a question. A lot of people would hear this and they go, okay, that's great. You found what you love to do. I still don't know how to figure that out. So two things I'll tell you. One is start right where you are. So God is very clear in Ecclesiastes. It's Old Testament. It's awesome. It's very clear in Ecclesiastes. He says in 3:13, for this is the love of God, that we keep his command. No, sorry, that's First Peter. I'm way off. That's even First John. It's not First Peter. He commands us to seek pleasure in the toil. It's God's gift. So that's a paraphrase pullout of 3:13. But where I'm challenging all of us is even if you don't like your work or your job, there's something in it that you can take pleasure in. There's something in it that you will like. You have to be proactive. Be faithful in the Lord. If you're in Christ, this is easy. If you're not, it's going to be a lot harder because you're going to be doing it on your own power and not by the divine power of the Holy Spirit. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. But look for that one thing that you really love to do. And you may have to search really hard, but find that and then dig into finding ways that you can do more and more of that. Start there. If you haven't found it before, then you're going to ignite something you didn't know you had in you. If you've lost that, used to have it, you're not sure, this will reignite that. That will give you the energy in one sense to be able to go out and say, okay, how can I expand on that or make a pivot into a different line of work or a different job so that I can do more of what comes easier to me in the pleasure seeking of the work. Toil is not a bad thing if you're seeking the pleasure in it. And I'll give you one quick story, Dylan, if I could, about a ditch. You want the ditch story?
I do. I want the ditch story.
Okay. So the ditch story is this, and this is, I think pre-COVID or maybe right around COVID. Anyway, I was out. So I had to dig I had a water problem, unmet need. I had a problem in my yard. I was going to hire somebody out, but I was going through this pooling of water problem in my front yard, and it was pretty bad. It was coming. My neighbor's yard sits up about a foot higher, and it slopes down. It's just the worst spot. And not his fault. It's just how the lots were made, right? So I was going to hire it out, but I was going through this exercise with the Lord about seeking pleasure in the toil. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. And I was kind of miserable trying to figure out what I really finding the pleasure in what I was doing at the time. And I was pretty burned out anyway. So, and I'm like, and this isn't even my full-time job. This is like, house chores. So I prayed about it and I said, okay, Lord, I've got to do this ditch. I got to get it done. I'm going to do it. And nobody wants to dig a ditch. And Lord, I'm going to trust you faithfully, because if you can help me find pleasure in digging a ditch, then that's going to be clear evidence to me. Not that you're wrong. I just need to be able to experience it. So I trust you. So I went and prayed about it, and I went and dug a French drain. And I've got to tell you, it is to this day, I'm getting pleasure telling you this story. I get pleasure every time I walk by it, to walk my dog, to tell my friends and neighbors about it. But the work itself was a pleasure because I looked for it, to the extent where when I was trying to figure out how to get the grade right, so you get enough slope where you have 40 feet of span, so you can't, I'm not a math magician. So I'm sitting here going, how do I get that 1 degree grade from 1 foot to 40 foot? And so I had to figure that out. Well, I took pleasure in how to do that calculation. The other thing is I had a bunch of trees around, so I couldn't just dig the ditch with a shovel. I had to get an axe out and cut roots. Massive trees. It was not hurting the trees to cut these roots. I had to cut the roots so that I could get a clean channel. Most satisfying part of the entire experience. Anyway, all these things I was finding, not just one thing. I had a dozen or more things that I was seeking pleasure. Even when I stopped to take a break, which I enjoyed because I was really enjoying what I was building. The whole thing, a ditch. One of the most pleasurable things I've ever done. And it's because I was faithful to the Lord and his promise and really his command that I could seek pleasure, that it was his gift to me. I believed it was his gift. And because of that, I love the ditch. It still brings me pleasure. My yard is healthy over there. This has been probably 5-6 years ago, maybe longer. And it is still one of the great stories. And that is something that every person in this audience can do themselves. If I can do it with a ditch, you can find it in the job you hate.
Right, exactly. Well, I was just going to touch on that, is because, speaking of overly used phrases, right, is, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life, right? But there's times where you're going to probably hate what you're doing at that time at the job, but it's loving it enough to stay doing it, right? And working towards getting to that where you're that end goal, of course, right? And for you, it was that. I love that story, getting that dish, the process all the way through. There might have been times that it would have been, if it was hot or whatever, but you trusted that there was an end goal and you loved the process of it all. So thank you for touching on that, because there's so many lessons in that.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. It changed my life. I mean, it's unbelievable. So believable. No. Actually, it's very believable.
Exactly.
Do it.
Right.
Go dig a ditch, man. And just have a good attitude. That's a start. So
yes, exactly. Yep. And then seeing it at the end of it too, just that satisfaction of it being completed. It's just like, man,
I'm getting high right now because I can see it in my mind, and I'm like, man, that was such a great project.
Yeah, might have to go dig another ditch,
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
No, but then back to what you were saying as well, about pivoting and adapting to everything that's changing, because everything that's changing right now. Some of those companies, you see why, like the Amazon example that you used, why they've become successful, because they did pivot. But then you see some companies out there who think that what they're doing is going to be, is just recession proof, and it's going to be something that's going to last forever. But then you see them, why they're not successful, right? So that brings me to the question that I wanted to ask you is, looking ahead, what is your long-term, vision for PetroVybe, and what are you building over the next several years? What you're planning to build over the next several years, and what do you hope the company becomes known for?
Yeah. So, I hope the company becomes known for a company that talks about Jesus all the time.
Yeah.
So ultimately, literally, that's what I most care about. We need to have practical credibility for being able to do that, meaning you have to have a healthy business in order to have the opportunity to do those things. Doesn't mean we're perfect, and we've missed on notably multitude of things, but we directionally are getting it done, and we overcome the obstacles and the headwinds that are a challenge. So what I would say is that it's really critical for us to, in my mind, I really want us to prove that biblical stewardship is not only economically viable and fruitful, but that it is impactful for eternity, meaning that we're having an impact on the way people work, that they seek to grow in their relationship with their creator through their work, that we are able to provide opportunities for people in their communities, not just economic, but just maybe it's even fellowship through work. And that we can demonstrate to people, not just in the company, but also our vendor partners out in the field. Our field partners is a better way to look at them. Honorable behavior, and we get challenged by that all the time. I mean, it's a tough business, and we're learning some hard lessons and also getting some wins. But we've got work to do there. Like, there's a lot of work. We're an emerging company, so we stub our toe a lot. And I got to tell you, man, our field partners have been amazing. They've really worked with us in some tough times and continue to do that. They've also been participating in the reward. Our investor partners. Just that, those are the impact investing is a term that's getting some legs. That's really, I want to be able to be an impact company for the kingdom, and for his glory, and to be honest about our journey in getting there. And so that was a lot of words to support about. I hope when people think of PetroVybe, they think about Jesus.
That was you wrapped it up perfectly. I appreciate that, Peter. And, it's amazing to see what you're doing. And I can definitely see why you've been successful and why you're going to continue to be successful with PetroVybe and you're, personally as well. So again, Peter, I really do appreciate you joining today. This has been amazing. I do want to ask for those who are, want to learn more about PetroVybe, connect with you. What's the best way for them to do so?
PetroVybe.com. Certainly you can check us out there. You can also check me out on LinkedIn. So if that's of interest to you, I'm on X and Instagram too. Peter A. Snell is my PeterAsnell. That's my handle on all those platforms. So I think I'm on Facebook too, but I'm not on. I mean, I got a profile. Somebody's running it, but but I'm moderately active on LinkedIn, so that's probably the most. And X, I think I'm fairly active there as well. So
perfect. I'll make sure those in the show notes, make it a little bit easier on the listeners as well, so they can connect with you and learn more. And again, Peter, I really do appreciate you joining today and spending time with me and the listeners.
You bet, my man. Dylan, it's been awesome, bro. Appreciate you.